Hello? This is her. This is she.
Proper grammar is sometimes hard to use in everyday conversation, but it is absolutely essential when writing formal reports or papers. Surprisingly, many people don't check their papers for sometimes simple but often common grammatical errors. Let's drop in on a class critiquing their papers for a class very similar to yours and see how they do it.
Class, in Lesson 14, we learned that editing a paper is like applying a second coat of paint to a product. It's a finishing process. It's the process that brings your paper from an ordinary, everyday paper to something that's special, that says exactly what you wanted it to say. In this lesson, Lesson 15, we'll look at the process of editing a paper and examine some of the concepts that we need to go over and look for in our own papers and find those, apply them to this student essay. And we'll go through this process together so that then you'll be able to apply it to your own papers. Some of the things that we'll examine this essay for are sentence structure, because sentence structure is probably the most important thing as far as avoiding confusing your reader and saying exactly what you want to say. We'll look at common types of spelling errors. We'll look at errors in capitalization and other types of punctuation that may not hit your eye at first. It takes a careful look. We'll look at subject-verb agreement and at pronoun and pronoun reference or antecedent agreements also. Those can be confusing to the reader. We'll look for redundant words and phrases, things that say the same thing over again and it just weakens your message. And then we'll look at other refinements that may come out of our discussion as we examine this paper. Let's look at the student essay, Writing is Like a Minefield, and we'll read the paragraphs, and after we read a paragraph, we'll go through it and you just pick out what you see that bothers you, and then we'll examine what the concept is. Betty, would you start us off by reading paragraph 1?
Writing is like a minefield. Perfecting the art of written communication is not an easy task. It is cumbersome. Because we speak much faster than we write, because of the passive nature of the printed word, a writer cannot be certain if he has effectively communicated a thought or notion to the reading audience. Semantics can play havoc with a writer's best intentions, opening the door to miscommunication. Writing is like a minefield. One wrong step and you're dead. The English language is a very expressive language. Words enable us to identify, modify, clarify, intensify, and express the action and emotion of our day-to-day existence. You name it, we have a word for it. When we speak, we easily use terms, phrases, idioms, or local colloquialisms to communicate our ideas to the listener. The communication is based on the shared experiences and constantly modified as the listener displays comprehension or lack of through facial expression or body language.
All right. Thank you, Betty. Did anyone see any problems with maybe sentence structure? Let's look at sentence structure first. James.
I noticed on the sentence it is cumbersome because we speak much faster than we write. Those two sentences should be combined, shouldn't they?
Yes. James, how can you tell? What makes you think they should be?
Well, at the end of cumbersome, it doesn't really sound right because it's transitional. It should be transitional because it is cumbersome because we speak much faster than we write.
Yeah. All right, so the second thought really belongs with the first thought, doesn't it? And completes the first thought. So what would we do? What would you suggest that this writer do?
I would put a comma at the end of cumbersome.
We could do that. Do we have to have a comma here?
No.
Not necessarily. So if we don't need the comma, when in doubt, eliminate, okay? So when in doubt, don't. So we won't use a comma here, and we'll just have, it is cumbersome because we speak much faster than we write. Does that sound all right? Okay, that fixes it, doesn't it? Good thinking. That second part then would be considered what kind of sentence error? You may know? That'd be a fragment, okay? It would just be part an incomplete sentence. Okay, does anyone see any other problems with this paragraph? Maybe not confined to sentence structure, any different problems also? MG.
I see a capitalization problem there. Shouldn't English be capitalized?
Yes. Why?
It's a noun.
Okay, do we capitalize all nouns? Why should this one be capitalized? Anybody know?
It's the name of a language.
It's the name of a language. So something that's the name of a language or the name of a country, say, needs to be capitalized. So you knew that didn't look right. A lot of times, even if we don't know the exact rule, if it doesn't look right, go with your hunch, examine it, make the change, and see if that looks better. So you're right. Okay, good. Let's see what other problems we come up with. Did anybody see another problem even before the English language problem? Sylvia.
Yeah, there's a problem in the sentence right before the English language. It says, writing is like a minefield, comma, one wrong step and you're dead.
Right. What's the
Yeah.
problem with that?
It looks like two sentences stuck together.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like it would be correct as one sentence.
That's correct. This is a comma splice. It's a very common problem with student writing. These ideas are closely related, but they are both complete thoughts. So we can't really combine them with just a comma. We could here, now you'd have several choices. You could separate them with a period. Since the sentences are closely related, though, we may choose to leave it as one sentence, but we need a stronger stop than a comma. Now, here is an opportunity to use a colon, the double dots vertically placed. The symbol of the colon is that the beginning of the sentence, the first part of the sentence, is going to be explicated, or an example will be given by the second part of the sentence. So here we have writing is like a minefield. So your reader asks, well, in what way is it like a minefield? And then we have an explication of that first part. And we separate it with a colon, which gives the signal that one complete thought has stopped, and then this other is closely related as an explication or a set of examples. So that would take care of it. Okay, now we talked about the English language, the problem with capitalization there. What other problems do we see maybe in that one sentence that Sylvia brought up? Are there any other problems in that sentence itself? James?
Shouldn't your in that sentence be Y-O-U-R or Y-O-U apostrophe R-E rather than Y-O-U-R?
What's the difference between those two?
They're two totally different words, really.
They are. Yes. So this means this Y-O-U-R without the apostrophe is possessive pronoun. Obviously, we don't need a possessive. What does this actually say? What would your spelling of your say?
In what way?
It would say you are, wouldn't it? That's what its intention is. So we want to say one wrong step and you are dead. Now, this is a fairly casual paper. The tone is casual, so we have a few contractions. But you want to be careful about contractions and make sure you spell them right. This is a very common one. Can you hear the difference between Y-O-U-R and Y-O-U apostrophe R-E? Can you hear it? One step and you're dead? Can you? No, you can't hear how that's spelled. So this is where a lot of these spelling problems come out, because you're writing it as you hear it, as you're saying the word to yourself. So this should send up a red flag. Does anyone see any other problems maybe further down the page? Fred?
Something I don't understand in this next sentence here where it says you name it, that's a complete sentence. Then we have a word for it, another complete sentence, yet there seems to be a need to pull them together. And the comma doesn't quite do that.
Yeah. All right. This is the same pattern, isn't it, as the one that Sylvia had mentioned. So we do need a stronger stop there. What could we use here? Fred, what would you suggest this writer do?
Well, I was thinking of a colon, but I don't know, what is the difference between the use of a colon and a semicolon?
Ah, interesting question. The semicolon is actually more commonly used than the colon. And the semicolon combines two complete sentences that are closely related in a way that's not like the colon-related one, where the second part actually explicates or gives examples of the first part. So here we just have two complete thoughts. You name it, we have a word for it. Now we could put you name it, comma, and we have a word for it. That would fix it, because the comma and the conjunction and is a, shall we say, legal separation of the two complete thoughts. It gives the right signal to the reader. But here we could have, it might be more dramatic to use the semicolon and say, you name it, semicolon, we have a word for it. So that might be more what this writer has in mind. But it's confusing to us as readers because we see these two complete thoughts and we have only a comma there, so it sends an incomplete signal to us. So this would fix it. So we could put a semicolon here, or comma and. Good thinking on your part. All right, let's go on. Any other questions or problems that just don't seem to be exactly right? Yeah, Sylvia.
The last sentence on this paragraph doesn't seem to make sense for some reason. It reads that the communication is based on shared experiences and constantly modified as a listener displays comprehension or lack of, comma, through facial expression or body language. It seems like lack of is not a good way to end that part of the sentence.
It's a little confusing, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it confused Betty when she read it. It's hard when you have an error like this in a sentence. If you read it aloud, a lot of times you'll catch this. What do you suppose this sentence needs?
Well, what you want it to mean is as the listener displays comprehension or lack of comprehension. So perhaps lack of comprehension or lack of it.
Yeah,
And then, so
yeah.
to finish that thought.
Yes. This may just be an omitted word. Very easy to do when you're transposing from your maybe handwritten or typewritten rough drafts into your final draft. You know, you're just typing along real fast. It's easy to leave out a word. But your poor reader is just stuck there trying to figure it all out. So probably, especially since this was a small word, he probably had it here and left it out. But obviously, carefully editing and rereading the paper will point those out. So now if we put it in there, let's make sure whenever you use a pronoun, you want to make sure that the antecedent of the pronoun is clear in the preceding context. Would it be clear enough that it would refer to comprehension if we have that? Sylvia, read the entire sentence with it put in.
All right. The communication is based on shared experiences and constantly modified as a listener displays comprehension or lack of it through facial expression or body language.
Is that all right, class? Does that fix it for you?
Much better.
Okay. Makes sense at
Makes
least.
lots of sense.
Okay. Good. Very subtle one. Are there any usage or spelling problems a little further up from that last sentence? Look at the word colloquialism. This is an unusual word. Is this one spelled right?
No.
It's not, is it? Do we use that word very often? We don't, and it's kind of tricky to spell. So what should this writer do? What does a responsible writer do with a spelling problem like this? Betty.
Look it up in the dictionary.
Look it up in the dictionary. Take the time, take the responsibility to make sure that you spell these words right. Now, Betty, what would you do with this word? Can you tell what's wrong with it here?
The E should be changed to an I, spelled Colloquialisms.
Yes. Okay, colloquialisms. It would sound the same with the E in it, so you know it's not easy to know, but you knew that the I looked right, so that's the way we do. Now, if this were our paper, we would still want to make sure and go to the dictionary and look it up, okay? So, good. Is there any other problem with this section here? Does anybody see maybe a redundancy problem here? James?
Local and colloquialisms, those two words are redundant. What you need to do is eliminate local because colloquialisms implies local.
Very good. All right. Yes. A colloquialism is a local verbal expression. Okay, so we don't need local in there. Good. Now that's a refinement. It's a type of mistake that a lot of people wouldn't catch, but the astute reader will catch that, at least subconsciously, and it just sort of undermines, it makes you seem like you're not sure what you're talking about. So that would be a good elimination to do. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph, and Fred, would you read paragraph 2 for us, and then we'll go through it.
This listener-speaker interaction is crucial to effective oral communication. In writing, the author may not be able to express thoughts or ideas based on common experiences. The body language and facial expressions we take for granted in face-to-face communication are missing. The writer is incapable of modifying or altering a text once it is in the hands of the reader. Each word stands on its own, supported by the context created by the writer. It is vulnerable to the reader's interpretation or misinterpretation. If the wrong word or phrase is chosen, the opportunity for communication is lost.
All right, thank you, Fred. Let's start from the top of this paragraph. What problems does anyone see? Fred, do you see one?
One thing I immediately saw was why is author capitalized?
Good question. Is there any reason to capitalize author?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. No. If it were the name Arthur, we would capitalize it, but it's not. It's just a noun. So let's put that into lowercase. Good. All right, let's move down through the paragraph. What other problems do we see? Don't forget to look at punctuation, because a lot of times there will be a problem with punctuation that we can catch. James.
Well, in the sentence, the body language and facial expressions we take for granted in face-to-face communication are missing. There's a comma after communication. There really shouldn't be a comma there, should there?
No. No, there's no grammatical reason to have a comma, and this comma separates the subject from the verb. There's a natural vocal pause there called a caesura. Okay, you don't have to remember that for any reason, but a lot of times people are tempted to put a comma in there after they have a few modifiers, but grammatically, unless there's a grammatical reason like say a non-essential clause or phrase between the two, then you're setting off that, but not separating the subject from the verb. So here, let's eliminate that. And if you notice, when Fred read it, he didn't have much of even a caesura type pause there at all. You just don't have a pause there. Good. Good. That's another one of those subtle refinements we'd need to make. What about the next line? Is anybody seeing a problem in the next line? Sylvia.
There seems to be a spelling error on this line. The writer is incapable of modifying or altering a text once it is in the hands of the reader. The word altering is, it's either using the word alter wrong or misspelling the word alter, A-L-T-E-R.
Yes. Is there a word A-L-T-A-R? Yes, there is. So to this writer, before she or he has edited it, that might look okay because A-L-T-A-R is a word. It doesn't mean what they want to mean here, though. So by looking carefully at it, they would catch that. A-L-T-A-R, altar, is, of course, the place of worship in a church. And so here, it's not a verb at all. So we would change it to A-L-T-E-R. Good. And let's go down to the next line. Any problem in the next line? What about Fred?
Vulnerable is misspelled.
Okay, yes. What needs to be changed here, Fred?
The second U needs to be changed to an E.
Right. Now again, this is not a flagrant spelling error because it would be pronounced the same way if it were U-R, but it's E-R. So this reader should take a little more responsibility maybe to look it up. And this I don't think looks right. It just doesn't look right. So good for you, Fred, for finding that one. Any other ones? Betty?
Also notice above, it is vulnerable, where it says each word stands on its own. It should be, well, ITS and not the apostrophe S.
Right. Okay. Now, ITS without the apostrophe is the possessive pronoun, which is what is needed here. Each word stands on the words or its own. IT apostrophe S means what?
It is.
That means it is. We don't want to say each word stands on it is own. That obviously wouldn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
So if we leave out the apostrophe, then we eliminate that problem. So you're right on that one. All right, good. Let's go a little further down. Any other spellings or maybe typos or anything here? Look at the word interpretation or misinterpretation. Any problems there? James.
Well, I noticed on the word interpretation or misinterpretation, the word interpretation, it is spelled I-N-T-E-R-A-T-I-O-N. Pretation. Between the R and the P, the A should not be there.
Right, right. Any other problems with this paragraph? Betty?
Yes, we have a sentence fragment here. If the wrong word or phrase is chosen, the opportunity for communication is lost. We can combine both sentences.
Yes. All right, the first part is a sentence fragment. It's an incomplete thought. We can fix that easily because obviously it needs this next part. All right, let's go on. And Sylvia, if you'll read the next couple paragraphs, we'll look for more of the major mistakes from now on, and we'll leave it to you all to pick out the spelling errors that we'll run across. Sylvia?
All right. Technological advancement has had an indirect effect on writing as a form of communication. The majority of information needed at work and home is at one's disposal through the telephone, TV, computer, and fax machine, allowing for instant information. With everything moving at such a fast rate, the individual no longer has time to plow through lengthy pieces of written communication. Succinct writing is foremost. Brevity is key to efficiently communicating in a world where time is of the essence. Because of the time involved in expressing a thought in written form, some would argue that oral communication is much more efficient. The words comes out almost as fast as we can think them. Spoken phrases manifest themselves differently in the transition from oral to written communication. Idioms and colloquialisms do not read as well on paper as it sounds when spoken. Without careful linguistic strategies, a written idea can become cloudy and hard to follow, causing the reader's interest to wane.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Anybody see any problems with this paragraph at the top of the page? MG?
Technological advancement has an indirect effect. It would be rather effect.
Yes, the affect here should be effect. Now this is a tricky one because, again, orally you don't hear the difference between affect and effect in most circumstances. The affect is the verb spelling. Here we need a noun spelling, and effect is the noun spelling, so an indirect effect instead of affect. All right, good. Let's go down into the next paragraph because of the time involved. Does anyone see a problem in that paragraph except for spelling? James?
I noticed on the sentence the words comes out almost as fast as we can think them. Words should be singular rather than plural, shouldn't it?
Well, we could do that, but are we talking about more than one word? The word comes out as fast as we can think them. Would that fix it? Or is there something else? There is a problem here. What else could we do, James?
Make comes singular.
Okay. Actually, we would be making comes plural. Now, this is tricky because with a noun, if you put an S on it, it makes the noun plural. With a verb, if you put an S on it, it makes the verb singular, just to make it more interesting, okay? So here we have plural words. We need to say the words come out almost as fast as we can think them, okay? So this is, again, one of those that you can catch if you read your paper aloud. We would know that that doesn't sound right. Good thinking. All right, what other problems do we have here structurally? Sylvia?
Right below that, in the sentence where idioms and colloquialisms do not read as well on paper as it sounds when spoken, I believe the it doesn't apply appropriately to idioms and colloquialisms, and perhaps it should be they, as they sound or as they do when spoken.
Okay, so would you also want to change that verb sounds to do?
Yeah, I think so.
So read the sentence as it would be reworded correctly, Sylvia.
All right. Idioms and colloquialisms do not read as well on paper as they do when spoken.
Okay. Sounds better, doesn't it? Again, this is one that's pretty subtle, but the astute writer is going to look for awkwardnesses like that, where parts don't really agree too well. Okay. Now, let's go to our last paragraph here. Betty, if you'll finish us up by reading that paragraph.
With all these problems aspects to writing, why bother? We write to instruct, to entertain, to inform, providing a record of passage through life. The spoken word disappears into thin air. Its only record of existence is in the mind of the listener. Ultimately, it is the written word that forever perpetuates the image created by the writer, providing a perpetual opportunity for communication. As long as there is a reader, a word can be read and understood.
All right, good. That word perpetuates gives us a little problem there. All right, now, what problems do we see here in this paragraph?
All
right, Betty, what do you see?
Right where it says, we write to instruct, to entertain, to inform, maybe we could add, and to provide a record of passage through life.
Yes. This is a problem called parallelism. This structure, this whole section lacks parallelism because we have parallel ideas to instruct, to entertain, to inform, and this writer wants to say, and to provide a record of passage through life. But by putting provide in a different form, providing, it looks like providing is modifying to inform, and it's not. It's confusing. So yes, if we add and to provide a record of passage through life, that will fix that problem. Parallelism is a very common error in compositions like this, and it's fairly subtle, so you have to think, what exactly do I need? All right, there are other spelling errors in this essay that the careful reader would edit for and find and correct. Now, this is the way you examine your paper. After you would go through the essay as we have done, then you would take that copy that you had corrected and read that very carefully, looking for more refinements and so on, until you either run out of time or you're completely satisfied with your finished product. There you have your second coat of paint, and it makes a good one.